What's going on, guys? Chandler here. So this is going to be my new segment on my YouTube channel called First Listen Review that is taken from my $5 tier full album reactions. So I react to the entire album, and then at the very end I give my overall thoughts and initial thoughts and a score on the album as a whole. So again, if you do like what you see and want to support the channel going forward, head over to patreon.com/ChandlerBurtonEntertainment. This is exclusive to the $5 tier. Again, you get a full album reaction, review, and a whole bunch of other perks as well if you guys are interested. And again, there's always a link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the review, and thank you all so much for watching. Since we are doing a Metallica album, which is like the definition of metal, we got to do a couple of things before we get started. You got to get a Liquid Death sparkling water. You also got to combine it with a Zoa pineapple, dude. And you got to put it in a Black Panther Wakanda Forever cup. I'm going to do that as I talk about this. I am so excited for this album, dude. I mean, I love Metallica. They are the band that kind of... Well, not only kind of, they are the band that got me into metal. Like, I absolutely love these guys. I mean, seriously, of course, they've had a couple of hiccups every once in a while. Sounds like I'm peeing right here. But overall, man, I am so excited for this album. So excited for this album. I've heard good things about it. I've heard some people say it's a good mixture of their old stuff and like some of their stuff from like Load and Reload, which is pretty cool. So I don't know, man, like I'm really excited to just kind of jam it and see what we have in store here. But again, without like Master of Puppets, without the Black Album for me personally, I would not be the metalhead that I am today without those albums. Like truly, like they are incredible. So again, I've only heard 2 songs from this album cycle, which is songs I react to, which is Lux Eterna and Screaming Suicide. I heard a little bit of Darkness Had a Sun from the Jimmy Kimmel Show. But other than that, man, all these songs are going to be brand new to me because I just wanted to go in with just a fresh mindset. So as I said, this album is 79 minutes. So let's not waste any more time. Again, Metallica, 72 seasons, starting with the title track here. Let's pop it off here. Honestly, one of my most anticipated albums of the year. So I really hope it succeeds my expectations, or at least meets them. So let's pop it off in 3, 2, and 1.
A few moments later.
Dang, dude, that album was a journey, dude. That was a lot of fun to listen to. I'm so happy that they're back. I have like a ton of notes, as you can see here, that I want to talk about. But as I mentioned, like for the past 5 minutes, I really had to take a whiz. Not that that's going to matter to anybody here, because I'm just going to do the editing, so that part won't matter. So I'm going to go use the bathroom, and my first listen review is coming up next. So stick around for that. Alright, my friends, so we just got done jamming Metallica's brand new album, 72 Seasons. I first want to start off and say, sorry about the technical difficulties here. Again, for those just watching on YouTube here, we had a little bit of issues here on Room of Mirrors. We had a little bit of issue there, but I think we came back from it okay. So thank you all for bearing with me. I do appreciate that. But despite the technical difficulties here, I really enjoyed this album quite a bit. I do want to start off the review by showing you guys something. So I have a huge stack, a pretty decent stack of vinyls, as you can see here. You know, pretty good amount, but there is one album that without this album right here, Master of Puppets, I would not be the metalhead I am today. Like this album, it's not the first Metallica album that I heard, it's actually the Black Album that I heard in its entirety, but I remember listening to this album for the first time and going like, dude, if it wasn't for this album and it wasn't for the Black Album as well, mainly this one, I would not be the metalhead I am today. I know a lot of people say their main inspiration was Metallica. I am right there with it, because this album legitimately changed me from going like, okay, like metal is my favorite genre of music, and that's why I love like metalcore and all types of metal, because of this album right here. It means so much to me. So again, what did I think overall of 72 Seasons? Let's go ahead and talk about it here. There's definitely a lot of pros. There's definitely some cons. I'll give you my top 3 songs, and then I will give you my score at the very end. And again, I know Metallica is a very big band, and it's subject to opinion, so definitely let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, whether it's on Patreon or YouTube here. But I do want to start off with the pros here. As I said, I got a lot of notes here. The first thing that I will say is that these songs are very well put together. And I'm a big fan of their last album, Hardwired Self-Destruct, but it just felt kind of, I don't know, like it just felt kind of to me. I liked it overall, But with this one, I just felt like the songs, like it was more well put together, and I really liked that aspect of it here. It just felt, I don't know if fresh is the right word, but they were just, in my opinion, just better put together songs than like their last couple of albums. I thought they did a really good job of just doing what they need to do here, there, and I just thought it sounded really cool. So very well put together songs. Another thing I want to say too is that I still think James sounds great. I don't think he's like the greatest vocalist in the world, but when it comes to consistency, I think he's fantastic. I think he's a great, rhythm guitarist and stuff, and I really love his vocal melodies on a lot of these songs. I was like going like, wow, like, I mean, he's 60 years old and he's like he's able to write these awesome melodies. Now, granted, he's had a lot of time to, kind of perfect his craft, but really impressed with how James is still portraying like, his vocals and his capability to do so, man. I thought he did a really good job with that. So props to James and his vocals. Like, I thought they were really good. The melodies were awesome on this album. I'd also say, again, the riffs and the guitar work sounds great. Like, I thought it was really cool. Like, I just love how, like, you could definitely tell there is inspiration from all types of Metallica, which we'll talk about here in a second, as you see on screen. But the riffs were cool. I mean, obviously, this is not metalcore, not expecting any breakdowns or anything. But again, the riffs were just so engaging. Like, Kirk is still so good at what he does. And it's just, I don't know, they're just a lot of fun to listen to. Even though we know a guitar solo is coming, it usually is like, wow, that actually still sounds really, really cool. And then I would also say, as I just mentioned, I love the mix of old and new Metallica. Like, it feels like they really drew a lot of inspiration from themselves. Like, I'm sure Metallica hears all the time saying like, Metallica inspired me to want to be in a metal band, and Metallica's like, you know what, like, we should just draw inspiration from ourselves and like what worked and what didn't work. And I really felt like I really felt that. Like, for me personally, I heard stuff from like the Kill 'Em All album cycle, maybe not in its entirety, but definitely little snippets. I'm like, that definitely felt like Kill 'Em All. I heard a lot of Black Album influences, and I definitely heard a lot of Load and Reload kind of in that area, and even some from like Death Magnetic. Like, I really was like impressed of how they took a lot of their discography and they kind of combined it to make this album, which is really, really, really cool. And then I would also say the last pro that I would say, there's 5 pros here, which I usually don't do that, but the lyrics on this album seem a lot more personable this time around. I was kind of reading on this album, and this album's kind of talking about like, the cycle of life, and that could be a really sensitive subject for a lot of people because, obviously, they're getting older, and we don't know what's going to happen within the next few years, and it's like, it seems like a lot of this album was very mental health focused or kind of like inner pains, and I'm like, Metallica again has talked about that kind of stuff before, but on this one it just seemed a lot more realistic, which I don't know if that should be a scary thing, but I actually really appreciate them. Like, songs like Screaming Suicide, or even like the last song Immorta, which again we'll talk about in kind of the negative section, which I do like, but we'll still talk about that, had really good lyrics on it, and I was like, dude, these are like really, really cool. And I don't know, I kind of like was like really engaged with those lyrics. So honestly, like, overall this album definitely more positive than negatives, but let's jump into the negatives. So again, I'll probably play devil's advocate on a couple of these here, because the first one I'm going to say, for when it comes to the negatives, that some of the songs are a little too long in my opinion. Example, like I just mentioned, Immorta. Again, I think the lyrics on that are great, but it just went on for a little too long. It also got a little bit repetitive. Like, I love the line in it, like, misery needs, like, I love misery, but she needs me, and stuff like that. I think that's really relatable and super cool, but it's like, it's just a little too long. And I kind of felt that with some of the other songs as well, where, like, for example, You Must Burn also was a song that was okay, but just did not, in my opinion, could just not, it didn't hold my attention. There were a few times on this album, I won't lie, I had kind of a glazed look. While overall I think it's positive, there were still a few times I was like, okay, this is going on a little bit too long, and I kind of just want to jump to the next song. So that is kind of one of the things, that's just a little bit too long on some of the songs, but it's not like it's a new thing. Metallica's been doing long songs forever, but again, like songs like 72 Seasons, or let me pull it up here, like, again, Sleepwalk My Life Away, If Darkness Had a Sun, a little bit longer, but held my attention a little bit more. I would also say some of the songs are a little bit repetitive when it comes to the structure as well, but again, Metallica's been around they've been around forever, since like at least 83, doing this kind of music, and me complaining about it is not really going to make a difference, because I mean, they don't really care, but it's like, for me as a music listener and reviewer, you want to be able to like mix things up a little bit. But as I said, like, it usually comes with like a pretty cool riff, a guitar solo, catchy chords and those types of things. So it's just your typical type of music, nothing like, crazy. But the structures of the song, while they may have different riffs in them, different guitar solos, they do feel a little bit predictable when it comes to the structures of the song. I mean, it's still very well put together, though. I would also say, again, devil's advocate here, some of the lyrics do come off as a little bit cheesy. While there's a lot of high notes on the album when it comes to the lyrics, there's just some, for example, like Crown of Barbed Wire and You Must Burn. I thought the lyrics on that were just a little too on the nose for me, and those are a couple of songs I probably am not going to revisit on this album. So again, some of the lyrics just came off a little cheesy, and it's a bummer, because like, you hear these really inspiring lyrics that are like, wow, I can apply this to my life and it's really cool, and then you just hear kind of these cheesies. I'm like, I don't know, I'm just not really like a huge fan of the way they were saying it. But again, that's just a personal opinion. And then I would also say the last negative for me is that the production, I've always felt Metallica's production was just a little bit off, especially like with the last, like Death Magnetic, I know was plagued with issues. I mean, Saint Anger was like the worst sounding album ever, and then just like Hardwired or Self-Destruct, it seemed like it was like kind of the same type of structures, and I'm sorry, same type of production. But for me, like, I don't know, the snare drum was like really loud. Like, I know a lot of people meme on Lars about his drums, but I just felt like the drums were way too loud, and when the snare would hit, it would just bury the rest of the other parts of the song within the mix. So the production was a little bit, it wasn't too bad, but there were a few parts I was like, dude, we got to turn that snare drum down, dude. That is way too loud. So my top 3 favorite songs from this album, again, this was actually really hard, because I was like, I really enjoy the majority of this album, but I would say Sleepwalk My Life Away. I love James' vocals melody on that. I love that Enter Sandman inspired riff, and it had other cool guitar moments on there as well. So it definitely was a huge stand-up for me. I really enjoyed that song. Another one was I don't know, this feels like it's going to be the black sheep of the album, but Shadows Follow. I thought that was a great riff. I was rocking my head, having a good time. Like, I felt like I was listening to Metallica for the first time. Like, I just loved it. I thought that was really cool. And then I would also say Chasing Light. That's another song where I felt like I was listening to Metallica for the first time, and that song definitely felt like a Kill 'Em All era of Metallica, especially in the chorus, the way James sang on the chorus, and like the guitar riffs. I was like, this is incredible. Like, it still feels like modern day Metallica, but they definitely, you could tell they took inspiration from some of their older music, and I really, really enjoyed that. Again, I enjoy the majority of these songs on this album, but again, those are the 3 songs that stuck out to me on 72 Seasons. So I am going to say something that may be a little bit controversial. This is, again, my first initial listen of this album, and I do plan on going back to re-listen to this album, but as it stands, I personally think that this is the best Metallica album since the Black Album. Now, for me, it would probably be like, Master of Puppets, the Black Album, Ride the Lightning, Injustice for All, and then Kill 'Em All, which, again, I like Kill 'Em All, but out of all those, it'd probably be my least favorite. It's just the one I'm not as nostalgic for, and I haven't listened to as much. But, and then I would probably put this album, because again, I felt like they drew inspiration from their older stuff, but also incorporated some stuff from their Load and Reload album, but also took some inspiration from, like, their newer style, and I thought they did a really good job of combining it together. Again, as I said in the beginning, it felt like they just drew inspiration from themselves. Like, they just went back and were like, okay, let's, like, try to, like, do this for the fans, but also do music that we love, and I think that was really, really cool. But yeah, I think this is their best album since the Black Album. I think truly it is really, really good. Like, even like people like my cousin Jacob is into Metallica. He was like a baby when I first started listening to Metallica, and it's cool that he's getting inspired by, like, to him this is like, brand new. It's a perfect time for him here. He's been playing guitar and drums, and I love that he's getting inspired by Metallica. Like, listening to this album felt like I was listening to Metallica for the first time again, and I haven't had that feeling in a while. I did not feel that on Hardwire to Self-Destruct. I like that album, but I just didn't love that album, and it just felt like, typical Metallica. But this one, it felt like I was jamming Metallica for the first time in my room when I was 13 or 14 years old, and that was such an awesome feeling. Like, I thought that was really cool. I hope we don't have to wait for another 7 years for their next album, because honestly, I'm going to be 37 by the time they drop their next album, probably with a kid. So I hope we get something a little bit sooner, but hypothetically speaking, if this was the last album they ever did, if Metallica called it quits after their massive tour that they're doing, I think this would be a great way to end like their career, if they were going to. I don't think they are, but I would be satisfied with this closing chapter of Metallica on their 11th album, 72 Seasons. I'm going to give this album an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I mean, who knows? It may be on the top 10 albums of the year. I mean, I really liked it a lot. Again, there's a few stinkers on there. Not every album is perfect by any means, but overall, again, I think this is their best material they've done in years.